Okay, good morning. How are you? This is Patty Joe, and I just wanted to continue a discussion on the crime and specifically what is happening coming out of the tragedy at the Brooklyn Day block party tragedy, really tragedy. Um, we're going to look at a news report from Fox News, which on this matter is not my favorite source. And we'll take a look at why. We're going to look at the criticism of safe streets and why this might be a distraction instead of helping matters. Let's start with the news report. Remember to always be kind if you're going to comment. Okay, so this is from Fox 45 News here in Baltimore. They are, I'm about midway through this. This started out as a Morel Park criticism crime in the city. And we're going to pick up where they're talking to the mayor about specifically safe streets again.
We're talking about a very privileged document, Mackenzie.
So there is a document does exist?
We're talking about a very.
Okay, let me give you some background. The question is, and always has been at this point, has evolved into um, what why is there no transparency? Safe Street, which is a program in Baltimore to interrupt or help with the reduction of violent crime, has been criticized, and is the criticism is just growing exponentially. And one of the questions, I think, driven very hard by Fox News is, why is there no transparency? Transparency, they've given this little trigger word to it. There's no transparency, transparency, transparency. Let's take a look at what he's saying.
Sensitive process. We cannot put those workers at risk just because we want to think about and critique and criticize something that some people don't understand.
Can the public see a blank form?
I think the public should trust and know, just like they trust our police
Yeah,
officers.
they don't trust your police officers.
Lifesavers are out there doing their work.
Well, after Mayor Scott's latest comments on safe streets, Fox 45 News sent some questions to his office asking what information is privileged when it comes to the document used to record and track mediations done by Safe Streets workers. Monzi says Safe Streets workers' identities are private because they're not city workers and for their safety, yet police officers' information is public. We also asked the mayor what the public is supposed to base their trust on when it comes to Safe Streets workers. If none of this information is available, we have not heard back.
Okay, so I am sorry to have stopped her in mid-breath, but okay, so what they sent, they want all of this transparency. They want to know what Safe Streets, this program, is doing. And then they compare it to the police department. And let's be clear, again, as we go through the background of some of these things, we learn that Safe Streets is a program, not a jurisdiction, not a policy, it's not any of that. It is born as a program. It was funded originally, and we're going to look at that and see how it's funded today. But originally, these are funded through grants or universities originally, and we're actually going to see that question here come up. So that might be our next deep dive, is where does this money come from now? Okay, why is there a Monzi involved? Why is there a political kind of branch, their office, making any kind of connection there? If this is a community-based program to interrupt violent crime that was developed through studies from a university starting in Chicago, here at Hopkins, then why are we comparing it to a police department? They're not the police. But that's what we don't know. Maybe that's what this transparency is. So what are they supposed to base their trust on? Why are we throwing Safe Streets to the public here to make critiques? And quite frankly, this might be the only time that I like the mayor's answer to Fox News. Usually he's very defensive about their questions, and this time he was fairly calm and just said, you're asking for things that would compromise the program. And then they start asking about the Safe Street workers. I think we're getting driven in a direction here. We're going to be looking at the workers, not the program. So let's see if I'm right.
And we also want to know how the city is making sure employees aren't continuing to commit crimes while working for Safe Streets or Monzi. Fox 45 has found a few instances of employees getting in trouble with the law, including Ronald Alexander. In his plea agreement, Alexander confessed to taking drugs from people in the community as part of his work for Safe Streets. Cases like that fueling sharp criticism for the program.
I did it again. Okay. That's a little better. Sorry, ma'am. Because she's doing a good job at presenting what she's being given. Okay, so now we're saying that a Safe Street worker, whatever his name was, we're not going to, his name's already out there, so I'm not going to make that even more public by repeating it over and over again, that he admits in a plea agreement to taking drugs from possibly drug dealers or whatever level, and then either selling them or selling them back to them or doing whatever it is he did to make money. He was making some side money. Okay. Not really the most ethical thing to do if you're working for a program that's supposed to be mediating crime and lowering violent crime, which is often born from the selling of drugs that are illegal to sell. Did the police recently get in trouble for doing that too here in Baltimore? Gun Trace Task Force. Not that there's a direct connection, just that, are we throwing stones from glass houses here? Not that the police have done anything wrong here either, but you're looking at the employees of Safe Streets instead of at what we should be looking at, which is this program worthy to be throwing money at, or should we be trying to put money into a different pot of, to be funneled out in a different way that might actually work? Is this working? And how can we make it work? And maybe that does include looking at the ethics or morals of the actual workers in the program. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it does in some way. I don't know. But they're going to take one crack and they're just taking a sledgehammer to it. So let's move on. See what they have to say.
Has your view of the Safe Streets program changed throughout this?
Absolutely.
Oh, yes. Yes. My belief is that our city government is financing.
Okay, so is the money coming from the city government?
I believe that within my heart. Our city government is so invested in it that it's turning a blind eye to what it really is.
Well, many of our viewers want answers as well. In a Fox 45 viewer poll last week, we asked, should the mayor answer questions about Safe Streets? Well, you see, 91% of those who voted said yes. Fox 45 also hearing from city residents.
Only in Baltimore would you be able to get some kind of broken window as your backdrop. Holy moly. Had to point that out, sorry.
Skeptical of the program.
That I was told.
They should be doing a lot more than what I think they should be doing. All these young people should not be killing and guns and dying.
They doing their part, but it could be more.
Well, tonight we're asking again, do you think Mayor Scott needs to answer all questions about safe streets? So far, 89% of voters say yes. Head to foxbaltimore.com.
No, because your questions are kind of stupid, to be honest.
Safe Street supporters often point to a recent study from Johns Hopkins released.
Safe Streets was born from a study. Safe Streets came to Baltimore from Ceasefire, whose statistics said that, I can't remember exactly what they said, violent crime or shooting was reduced by 67% from the year before in a certain area. Now, remember what I said about statistics. They narrowed it to an area. They probably narrowed it to one type of violence. They took the number of those occurrences from 1 year, and after the interruptions, or what they called interrupters, or whatever it is they called it in the program, it reduced that one thing by 67%. And Baltimore said, that's what we need here. And so they went over to Hopkins and they did the same thing and got the same funds. And now maybe they're coming from, that was decades ago. Now maybe it's all coming from a different place. And believe me, the government in Baltimore put Monzi into place, and that office is specifically funded and driven to regulate this whole thing. That all sounds like just what that guy was doing to me about getting the drugs from the drug dealers that he was trying to interrupt. Well, he interrupted them all right. And perhaps that's what Baltimore government is. It's not like anybody in Baltimore in politics have done things above board at all times. Well, we could go through that for decades.
Released in March, touting the program's effectiveness. However, some question that study because the city funded it using taxpayer dollars. Critics say Johns Hopkins should have funded it on its own.
Hopkins funds all kinds of things on their own, like the list that says they're the best hospital in the U.S.
Questioning
Lord.
If it's biased because
Best
of
of
the
the
price
best.
tag.
I think that it raises a lot of questions about the
I don't know what piece
methodology
is.
that
We'll
was
have to look at
used,
that.
how sound
I wrote it
is.
down.
You know, let's not forget that the former state's attorney, Marilyn Mosby, also used a study that was a Johns Hopkins study to tout the
Marilyn Mosby, prosecuting attorney that doesn't want to prosecute any crimes, at least low-level crimes, which kind of crept up to even violent crimes. Oh, pee in the street, it's okay, we're not going to prosecute you. Oh, drunk driving, oh, no, don't worry about it. As a paramedic, I saw so many drunk drivers just let go because what was the point of even doing the paperwork? Or, we're not going to, I don't know.
supposed success of her policies.
I
but
could see they were
we-
drunk.
That didn't go over very well.
Well, you can find more on that study as well as all of our original reporting on the Safe Streets program.
Gonna look at that next, probably. The former Monzi director defends Safe Street despite questions about the data. Okay, well, data's data. But we'll look at some Fox News' questions and see what they have to say. I'm gonna be a little critical, but we'll look at
Program
it.
on our website, foxbaltimore.com.
Okay, foxbaltimore.com. Well, I want to thank you very much for listening again. Let me write that down. And please, again, be kind, share, subscribe if you wish. I'm going to go ahead and look into this stuff that they got online here and see where this money's come from, or we can even find out. That might be the next 2 questions. Again, remember the people who, and the tragedy that sparked all of this. 2 of them lost their lives. So, again, this is important. This is an important subject. Thank you again for listening, and have a great and safe day.